You're welcome back to my channel. So if this is your first time, thanks for stopping by, and please do consider subscribing. And to my returning subscriber, you're the best. So today we'll be looking at a mermaid skirt with Godet. The focus will be the Godet part. I have already uploaded a video on how to draft a dartless mermaid skirt, so you have to watch that to have an idea of the dartless, because I want to do dartless on this one. So now we'll start the drafting. So we'll have to get our waistline. From here we'll take the vertical measurement. So I'll be using the hip line of 8 inches. Now that's because the top part of this dress is already low waist. Okay, so I'll place it to shape out, to take out the shape that I want it to have on this skirt part. So I'll work with the 8 inches first, okay, before I now do the final shaping. So that 8 inches will be my hip line, and I'm using 18 inches for the knee line, and the skirt length is 42 inches. So now we'll have to draw those lines. So this is my hip line, my knee line, and the length. So now I'm using length 43 for the skirt. So on the waistline, I am placing 1/4 of my waist measurement, and I'm using 36 inches as my waist measurement. So 36 divided by 4, that's 9 inches. So I'll add 1.5 as my semi allowance. Then I go to the waist. Now I'm placing, for the Dartless formula, okay, we're using total hip measurement divided by 2 minus 1.5 for the front panel. So that's, after doing that, I arrived at 23, and dividing that by 2, I have 10.75. Now I'll leave the link to that video, the Dartless mermaid skirt, in the description box, okay, so you will watch that. So I have 10.75 and 1.5 for semi. At the knee line, I'll subtract 1 from 10.75, which is 9.75, and then 1.5 for semi allowance. So I will bring down exactly the measurement I have here to the hem here. So I have 11.5 here, so I'll bring it down 11.5. So now I'll be making this as an A-line skirt. So whatever allowance I have left here, this is about 7.5 inches. So I'll use 7 inches for the flare allowance. So now I'll need to connect this dot from the waistline to the hip, and from hip to the knee, and then I will be using this ruler to connect from the knee line to that flare allowance. So this now is the front panel. So now I'll need to cut this out. Setting this aside, I'll have to cut the back panel now before we do the Godet. So for the back panel, I'll be using 4 inches as my zip allowance. That will not be just for the zip, that includes the flare allowance I'll be using for the back. Now you can make it fuller than that, but I choose to make it 4 since I'll be adding the Godet to it, okay. So now I usually make my skirt 1 inch higher than, so now I will mark out the 4 inches that I'll be using for the zip allowance all the way to the hem. Okay, so I bring in the front panel now, and I'll place it on the back center line. This becomes the back center line. The 4 inches that I've drawn out becomes the back center line. You place it like 1/8 inch away from the back center line. Okay. So having placed it like so, you need to pin it down. On the waistline here, I'll go up with 1 inch. I want to make the back panel to be 1 inch higher. So I'll connect that from the waist measurement to the back center line, all the way through the zip allowance. So now I will be extending this lines. For the back panel, using the formula of total hip measurement divided by 2 plus 1.5, I have 24.5 inches. So dividing that by 2, because we are cutting it on fold, that's 12.25. So that's what I'll be marking from this hip measurement, not including the allowance part. The hip measurement, you mark 12.25 here, and I'm adding 1 inch allowance, making it 13.25 for my zipper allowance. So now on the knee part here, I'll go inwards with 1 inch. Okay, so it therefore means I will shape it from this back center line to the hip line, and then from the hip line now I shape it all the way to the knee line. Now on the spot that I took in with 1 inch, so from there now I'll take out this from this point. I take it all the way to the hemline, leaving some allowance so that I'll be able to have a seam allowance. So because I don't want this part too sharp, I'll need to use my pattern master to curve this. So it's okay with that. So now I'll be using this 1 inch as my zip allowance. So I'll measure 1 inch on the waistline, and then at that point I'll connect it to the hip line. And then on the spot 2, on the knee line for the back panel, I'll go outward with 1 inch. That's for my seam allowance and the zip allowance as well. So I'll connect it from the hip line here. I'll connect it to the knee line, and then I'll use my long ruler from this spot, take it out all the way to the hem, and that will be our seam allowance, okay, for this part. So we still use our pattern master to curve this part out to just give it a good plane. So now, because I want to make a godet, I would like to make the back panel to be 3 inches longer than the front panel. So I'll just connect it. I'll cuff it to meet the front panel like so. Make sure you give it a good curve. Then you take it out here. So that's it. Then we'll cut this out. So I'll need to notch the seam allowance, so I'll remember what inch I added as seam allowance. So that's it for the back panel. So the next thing will be the godet part.